I'm Stacy. I'm sitting here in my friend Sarah's beautiful dining room. I've traveled to see Sarah for the day. We're going to try something where we just talk about the lives that we're currently living, which are not the lives we planned when we were 19 years old. I think I was 19 when I met Sarah. We were sorority sisters in college, where I mentioned previously how much time we spent studying. I got to honestly say, Sarah, I don't think we ever once studied together.
I don't think we ever did.
I didn't study a lot in college, but boy, did we have a
Unless
good
you
time.
call Duffy's a really good study place.
We did.
Oops,
We did study.
That's giving away something. That's a giveaway.
So after college, we go do our thing and get jobs and meet spouses, and then one day we reconnect on Facebook, and I know that Sarah's still out there kind of reconnecting with all these college friends. And then one day you find yourself at your spouse's funeral, and you look across the room at all the people that have come to support you, and there is a group of your sorority sisters, and it reminds you how important those relationships are that you make at different stages of your life. So Sarah and I reconnected that day, and then as the year progressed, we connected in another level as a different kind of sister, and so I'll let Sarah take it from there.
So I'm Sarah, and Stacy very eloquently explained our past, and we both are going through the same situation right now. We have both lost our husbands in a not very long or in a very short amount of time. And we came up with this idea called Widow Chat last year, and it's taken a while to get it rolling, but we really, really wanted to get this out there to people. We're not therapists. We're not self-help people. I know I'm not.
But we're stinking hilarious.
But we're funny. And we're both, we just kind of want to share our stories, and it may resonate, it may not. Some days it may be funny, some days it may not be funny, some days it may be so inappropriate, and some days it may just be sad. Because those are the days I think that she and I both have, and I'm thankful. I'm not thankful for what I'm going through, but I'm thankful to have Stacy along, because I don't know what you do when you don't have that support system. And I know we both have huge support systems, but when you're with a like-minded person who totally gets it, it makes all the difference in the world. And so I'm very proud and humbled to be able to share the microphone with Stacy as we launch this crazy thing we're going to try and call Widow Chat. And hopefully you guys may find something out that's funny, or it may touch a nerve in hopefully a good way, or maybe it will help you. Maybe it'll just, maybe you'll just be able to relate on some level.
I think that relating is going to be one of the most valuable pieces. Sarah and I do not live in the same town. We live 3 hours apart, but knowing there was someone else out there that had experienced the loss of a spouse in a very sudden way. Both of our losses were gut punches, tragic events. Really, there are a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of resources through your church, through professional counseling. But one of the most undervalued resource is a peer who is going through it. And 3 hours doesn't mean that you can't have that relationship be really beneficial. And so I think I live in more of a rural community where I'm pretty hard pressed to find another 40-something widow.
Mm-hmm. That's your age, yeah.
So I think that if there's any value of connecting with someone out there who was like, holy cow, there is someone else out there who's in that 40 years and had that experience, that will be beneficial.
And I don't, I'm not going to speak for Stacy, but I will just say my situation happened almost a year and a half ago. My husband died suddenly on the morning of our son's first communion, which was a very, very, very tragic day for us, obviously. And I remember going to Stacy's husband's funeral several months prior thinking, I don't know how she's going to do this. I don't know how anybody does this. And then lo and behold, it's my fate too. So I've often wondered if I went to that. I was supposed to be there to prepare. I don't know. I don't know how those things work. But it was sudden, it was shocking, and it still, catches me, and it will always catch me off guard. But I think one of the purposes of Widow Chat is not to move on, but to move forward. And I think this is hopefully going to help, if nothing else, Stacy and I figure out ways to move forward. And we've both taken steps, but I mean, it's not easy.
No, and yeah, I'll be honest that this is a little self-serving on my part.
For sure. Me too.
This will absolutely help in my healing process. And Sarah and I are both big fans of the word forward and not moving on. That each day is just kind of a step forward, and then there's days where there's 1,000 steps backwards. But I think this will be beneficial.
And we both have children. I have a son who will be 10 in just a few days. So he was 8 when this happened. And that's a sobering event when you have to tell your child what just happened, why his father isn't there, and why the paramedics took him out of the house. And that was my situation. But I'll tell you what, I think many people out there who are going through this who have children probably have realized that they get you out of bed. They're the reason you wake up.
I wake up earlier now than I ever did in my previous life. I use the term previous life,
yeah, it's like
a lot
before.
because I don't know how to phrase it, and so that's kind of been my go-to verbiage of previous life, before the accident, after the accident. My husband was killed in a head-on car collision on a 2-lane highway when a driver crossed the center line. He was on his way to a triathlon to do the one thing that he just really, really loved. It was early in the morning, and it was several hours before I knew what had happened. It was several hours before I even knew that he didn't report for the triathlon. So my scenario is just a little different than Sarah's, but still at the same time one of those that kind of comes with some of the shock and post-traumatic stuff that maybe doesn't happen if you have a long-term illness or something like that. So her and I are on the same page a little bit with that event. I have 2 daughters, one in middle school and one in high school. And we are navigating that as best we can. Being a solo parent is incredibly difficult and incredibly gratifying. And I high-five myself a lot. And I chastise myself a lot.
And I think it's important to touch on solo parenting because it's not single parenting. And I can't tell you how many times people say, well, we know you're a single parent, and I correct people. I do. I say, no, I'm a solo parent. I do it all the time, and I probably shouldn't, but I still do it because I don't have, my son is with me every day, not just Wednesdays and every other weekend or whatever. My son is, and I don't have his father here to help me.
And I think that solo parent term is important too, because so much of my parenting style was developed with my spouse.
Yes.
We had a lot of conversations about when my daughter gets to be this age and when she starts to drive, when she starts to date, how we'll approach those life events. And so I'm very much still parenting with him because
That's
the
cool.
philosophy is consistent. We really were on the same page with that, and so I do feel like I still have a parenting partner, just not
in the physical sense.
Yeah. So I do prefer that solo parent term.
And we both follow a blog on the Facebooks, as I like to call it. And I think we've both learned a lot from this woman who is absolutely amazing and rock star. And I swear we're going to go stalk her and knock on her door.
Probably.
It's cool.
Yeah,
It's
not in
cool.
a creepy way, because
No.
we're not creepy feet.
No, we're not creepy. I mean, she would want this. I know she,
She would totally want to spend
She'd
time
say
with us.
she totally wants to meet us. She just doesn't realize it yet. But yeah, and she's given me, and I know she's given you, Stacy, some things to think about. The way she blogs sometimes is just like, I swear she has a window to my soul. It's like, did you just listen to the conversation I just had with somebody and then write about it, because she gets it. What was the last one that I just read the night before?
Right, the night before her spouse passed away, and what those events were like, and how they were so vivid for her. And
And for me and for you, I should explain that my husband did die of an aortic dissection, so his aorta ruptured, and it was over, I believe, in the first couple of minutes. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was right there when it happened, but I didn't know what was happening, and the autopsy didn't come back for a while, so it was not known to anybody what had happened for a little bit of time. In fact, we were told that it may have been a heart attack, but they weren't sure. And of course, when you're sitting in that hospital room looking at that little doctor who looked about half your age, and you look at him and you think you're not sure if he had a heart attack, it's very unnerving. So the only good thing about that is that I know it was an instant thing. I just didn't realize it. I thought he was still alive when the paramedics left our house, but they were being very discreet, because unfortunately my son was there too. He wasn't right there, but he was there, and he saw his father being taken out. So it was, as you can imagine, very, very difficult. But that is how he died, so I should probably clarify that.
I think, I don't know how many details we want to share, but my situation afterwards was a little different than yours, in terms of I didn't have a body. There
Yeah.
was no. It was just an incredible explosion, and so you had to take care of some things immediately that mine was just, there was nothing else I could do. And so that experience for you is obviously very different. And but I think back to that, for me, it's been, it was 2 years in July, and we're in October. So what is that? About 27 months since my husband's accident. And I think back to that week. I think back to that whole year, and it's still an out of body experience.
For sure.
It's still foggy, and but then at the same time I look back, I'm like, we did that, like we pulled off a funeral, and
A huge funeral.
yeah, and
Years, husband's funeral.
yeah,
I mean,
and
did
I mean,
eight
like, I got
towns
up and
show
I
up?
showered,
You did.
and I I functioned through it, and so some days I'm kind of impressed that we even did that. It's a great testament to what the human body is capable of, and what the mind can do when it has to.
I learned early on that your body automatically shuts down certain things so you don't feel emotions.
Yep.
You compartmentalize, and you can't think, you can't think more than a small amount. You can't focus on like reading a book, because your brain isn't allowing you to think too far into anything. So it took me, gosh, when I started quote unquote thawing out, it took me around the year mark, and that's when I really experienced the sadness of what had happened, and I started to relive the day, the morning. And I had post-traumatic stress disorder leading up to the first year. I was told that I was finally having it, and because I was finally living it like it was happening, and it was causing a lot of anxiety. But I want to back up to the first week when this was all happening, and this is where I'm probably going to get a little inappropriate, because when you talk about body versus no body, my husband didn't look like my husband in his casket. He looked gray, and he had product in his hair. And my husband never, ever put product in his hair. And if anybody ever listens to this besides Stacy and I that knew him, they'll know how funny that is. But it wasn't funny to me at the time. I did yell at my, our family, I guess, what is he, the funeral director that we've used many times. He knew my husband very well. And I looked at him and I said, did your embalmer just get out of school? Because this is not the man that I was married to. And I'm like, and you know this, and I know you know this. So it was, I don't know which is worse to have or to not have because he looked that bad. Even one of the, his mentor, one of the concelebrants, one of the priests, one of the Jesuits that was flown in for it, hadn't seen him and wanted to see him quietly. And I was with him, and this man is so funny. And he looked at him and he goes, "Oh my God, he looks terrible." And I said, "Yes, he does. Thank you. I get it." Because everybody didn't want to tell me what I already knew. And that was just, I mean, it was funny, but it was sad. And I mean, the worst part about it is I remember my son going up and looking at him saying, "Mom, that doesn't look like Dad." And I said, "You know what? It doesn't." I said, "But you know what Daddy looks like." And he put his little note in the casket that he had written. And it was, that was something. But yeah, how do we function? How did we function through that, Yosti?
I don't know. When I got to the year mark, well, let's just talk about that first week.
Sure.
That could be a whole day right there.
Yeah.
I completely now understand the fight or flight. That's something people talk about, and you're like, well, I don't know what I would do. I get it now. And I think it helps a lot to know how you're wired before you have to put it all into play, if that makes sense. Like, I know that that my faith is going to be something that is going to have to just be present every day of this first week and beyond. I know that I'm going to need specific family members next to me the whole time. I know that I'm going to need to eat on a regular schedule because that is how I function best. I think a certain amount of self-awareness is really important at any stage of your life so that when you got to put it into play, you got that to fall back on. And I think that's what I did that first week. But I had some absolute rock stars that from the sheriff who came to my house to give me the news, to the pharmacist who delivered, I was living outside of town, a town of 7,500 on an acreage. So, I mean, we're pretty rural. And the pharmacist who drove out and delivered Xanax to the guy, I had a haircut appointment scheduled, which I wasn't going to be able to make, obviously, because I now have a funeral.
Sure.
He drove an hour down and cut my hair on my front porch.
I
there
didn't
were
know
just
that.
some things that you just kind of turn into this funeral central operation, and you get it done.
Command Central.
Yeah, hotels calling and saying we got rooms. We know you got people flying in. It just
I love the hotels called you, but yeah, that would be your town.
yeah. They called and
The
said
hotels
we
called
set
you.
aside 15 rooms. We know you
got a
got
block.
family and college friends flying in. Yeah, you get a block of rooms for your wedding, and then
the funeral.
and then at the end you get them. So, but I think I think women particularly can be really hard on themselves about how they handled that first week.
For sure.
Did I do this right? Did I pick the right casket? It doesn't matter. It really, and I think a lot of that depends on your faith values, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that relationship that you established with your kids, those first 3 hours, and what that looks like. And it just, don't be hard on yourself. When I got to the 1 year mark, I looked back and I remember telling my brother, because there's a lot of pressure put on you about 1 year.
Yes.
1 year, apparently you're cured. We joked
I'm
about
cured.
that. Yeah.
I'm totally fine.
Congratulations.
I don't even know why I'm doing this. I don't need this.
Yeah. I remember telling my brother when I got to the 1 year mark, I can look back on that year and really I don't have a lot of regrets. And there's not a lot of points in your life when you can look back and say, I don't have a lot of regrets. But that was one, because I just, you're kind of stripped down. You're kind of down to just bare
It's raw.
necessities in life. You're very raw, and you just function and
Get through the day.
yeah. Best advice I had that first week was do the next thing.
You told me that, and I did that.
Repeated that in my head all day long. Do the next thing.
You gave me that advice, and I
Make
used
sure
it.
you're wearing matching shoes today.
Right.
Do the next thing. Make sure you eat something. I still use it a lot on hard days. Today we're just going to do the next thing. So that's my first week.
Can we talk about caskets and flowers?
Sure.
So my husband's casket was a rental.
Oh,
Well, because we had a body.
I
and then we
remember you
didn't.
telling me that.
It was a
and,
rental.
And in hindsight, I'm like, I didn't know that was an option. I would have been all over that.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
But we didn't do cremations, so
I understand.
I should.
We did. Well, we did it later. We didn't.
Right.
As in.
We'll
as
have a
in-
whole
Yes, we'll have
episode
we'll have-
dedicated to tombstones.
For sure. Oh, we can't wait for that one. That's going to be a good one. His body was at the services, at the visitation, and at the funeral mass, and then he was cremated. So when the family and myself had to go pick out the casket, and I had told the gentleman our wishes, he said, "Well, you can get a rental." And I said, "Well, that's fantastic.
Brilliant.
That saves me money." I go, "But here's the thing. I want a fresh rental."
Then it's
And I told
not a
him that.
rental.
And I told him that. No, he gave me. They got a new one for me. And they told me the morning of the visitation. He goes, "By the way, the casket. He's the first one using it." I go,
Nice.
"Thank you."
Nice.
And then like the flowers, because funeral flowers. I mean, give me a break. So like the ones that cascade over. So he was showing me, you literally look through, it's like when you're looking for your wedding flowers.
Oh,
you're
yeah,
looking through
it's a
books.
catalog.
It's
Yeah.
a catalog of, the laminated pages. And I'm going, well, these are all ugly. I mean, they just are. So I take like the one, like the 720A, whatever it was. Those are and I basically said, I like that, except we're going to change everything in it. And we did. So we put we got rid of basically all the flowers and put all new ones in and less dangly. More, yeah. So he had to call Marlis was the gal. He's right there with my family, calling the florist. Okay, so we're gonna take the 720A. We're gonna actually modify it to the 720B. We're gonna, less glads, more hyacinth. And I'm listening to him talk this through with the lady, and you can hear going, oh sure. And he goes, not stuff dangling over, just
And did they do it? Or
It looked fantastic.
Good.
That was the first thing I looked at. Was the flowers.
That's funny.
Yeah, and because I don't care, but I cared that day because I do for a living. I was an event planner. I guess I still am, but I'm not working presently. And so I turned this into the way I got through that week was it became an event, and I had to execute, and that's how I got through it. But I remember the conversation about less glads, more hyacinth, and we changed the number and made it its own bouquet, and I'm like, you should put that in your catalog because that's a good one.
There you go.
For sure.
Yeah.
But then the rental casket, he was the first one in, so
That's
I felt
funny.
really good about that because it was fresh.
I remember going to the funeral home, and we've got, my siblings. I remember my nephew was with us. He's a college student. And then my husband's family. And, we don't know how this works, although my father-in-law had recently passed away, so we had
Right.
been
I
through a
remember
little bit
that.
of this. But they bring you a catalog, and I'm sitting with my sister, and this is for the casket, and I just immediately go to the last page. And she's like, why are you reading the book backwards? I'm like, because he wants the cheapest one. And the
Yeah.
cheap ones, I'm going to the sales section. Because he had often talked about, don't spend a
Clearance.
lot of money on this. And so,
Clearance.
so we went to the sales section. And we'll talk about the sales section on Tombstone Day as well. Cause
Oh shoot, that's a good
I,
conversation.
if you buy a cheap casket, at least they put it in the ground and bury it. If you buy a cheap tombstone,
it's up
it
there.
apparently stays for 250 years or something like
I'm
that.
telling
So,
you, that's such a great story too. Oh my god.
And then I remember picking out flowers and they put brother, son, husband. I remember rattling off all these things. But we need one that says friend,
Yeah.
doctor, college. And then they're like, no, we're just going to do son. I'm like,
no, we
"Oh,
need
okay."
all of it. I need 30 of them.
Triathlete.
Yeah, don't you have those? Yeah.
Yeah. So I vaguely kind of remember some of that stuff. My husband hated cold sandwiches and hated salads. So I remember
Are you kidding me? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. For a farm kid, he was.
Wow.
So I do remember having the wherewithal of. We're
No,
having pizza.
we
We're having
my favorite
buffet.
pizza. My
Yep.
pizza. My favorite pizza
Yep.
of all time was served
Yep.
there. I walked in. I was like, "Well, this just got even more interesting."
Yeah, so.
I almost took one with me home, but I didn't.
Well,
That'd be
you do
rude.
have to explain that to the church ladies, that you have chosen to not serve their salads.
Right.
Which
And casseroles.
makes things a little icy for a few weeks after.
Oh,
but
yeah, they get mad about that,
yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, when we did the funeral food, I mean, the church did. Well, see, first I should back up. My husband's from a big family, Irish Catholic family. I'm from, my extended family's huge. So we do a lot of funerals. We're in the funeral business by nature. So we had just done his mom's like the year before and a little over a year before. And we've done so many of them. So we actually knew, like when we planned it, it was like, we knew I knew exactly what I wanted. It was like 5 minutes out. I mean, we knew the music. I knew what he wanted. He had left a little, he had left a document, and it's funny because I knew everything on that document before I saw it, except for one thing. And that one thing unfortunately didn't work out, but everything else did. And but I mean, we had that thing planned, and my in-laws and I have joked that, oh, we got a funeral, we could get that done in 15 minutes. I mean, I'm like, what do you need? I can get you because one of my sisters-in-law, her mother-in-law passed away this past year over in Ireland, and she needed to plan. The family was needing to plan the wedding, and she needed some help. So I literally have a copy of my husband's program, and I pulled it up, and she's like texting the siblings and me, and I'm like, oh yeah, you need to do this reading, that, this is what you need. I mean, we had it all ready to go. I'm like, so we rolled that out, and
Nice.
yeah, I mean, there's something to that. There's something to that.
Yeah, it makes me want to maybe have some things in place so my daughters
I
don't
think
have
that you
to.
should.
Yeah, I probably need to do that.
No
Put that
guessing
on my
games.
list. I know.
No guessing games. I mean, I even write down to the music, and I knew what he wanted. I mean, it was right down to the last detail. And then it was the neighbors showing up. Like your post funeral thing was huge. At the where was that at? At like the
Eagles Club.
right, the Eagles. Yeah, I was gonna say the VFW, but same.
Yeah.
Mine was at my house. Well, first of all, it was at the church, and apparently we ate all the food they had to. Everybody, all the old ladies had to bake new casseroles because we had apparently out of house and home. And Father announced that at the next mass I went to. It was the week of Mother's Day, and so I think it was Mother's Day mass. He's like, and Sarah, your family ate all the food, so we need you all to start baking your casseroles because we got nothing, and we got 5 funerals next week. And I'm looking at him like, so this is my fault, And he was like trying to make, and it was funny at the time. I mean, it was. I'm like, really, this is my fault. It was kind of funny, but then there was people were at my house after the funeral, and apparently around 400 people were at my house.
Wow.
And my neighbors and friends that were there setting up, they had apparently this whole big document that they were working off of, like a big spreadsheet. You do this, you do that. It was very organized.
Yes,
Very
I
organized.
remember seeing some documents.
There's some spreadsheets.
Yes, spreadsheets, calendars. Who's staying with Stacy
But-
this week?
Right, you know how that goes.
Who's making sure she doesn't eat lasagna for the eighth
Eighth
day
time.
in a row?
You can't do that.
Yeah, I do
and people
remember
were so
that.
generous, but yeah.
I found some of those. I didn't go through cards
I know, me
until
neither.
probably 3 months ago, and I opened up this huge box full of cards, and I felt really guilty about not doing it sooner because there are times, I'll be honest, I'm in the grocery store and I see someone and I think, I never heard from you. I had
And they
this little
probably did.
event in my life and I never heard from you. Well,
And you
then
probably did.
I did. There's a lovely card and message from them. But I was going through it and I found the spreadsheets and the calendars
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
it was
The
a
Meals on Wheels.
fine-tuned operation.
For sure.
Yeah.
When-
And I was fortunate enough to have siblings or friends
Mm-hmm.
who all filled us, one of them worked in marketing,
Yeah.
one of them event planning,
Right.
and so they all just fell into the right roles. And so,
And they did it, and they do it lovingly. And
Yeah.
you just sit there and you go, I can't believe, like, some people were getting my house cleaned,
Yep.
because there were a lot of people coming and going, I'm sure at your place too.
and that's when I think, began to feel this naked feeling of there are people folding my underwear.
Yes, totally.
There are people scrubbing out my trash
Yep.
can. I have just
Yep.
revealed every detail of my finances to my brother and brother-in-law.
You had to,
I
though.
mean, you just become so exposed and so needy at the same time.
For sure.
And that at the beginning was, you don't have time to think about,
No.
do I really want them folding my underwear? You just think, oh my gosh, I just hope someone folds my underwear.
Mm-hmm.
And do I really want to show them my finances? I don't know how else to do this. So
Yeah, you had
Yeah.
to do I had to go through the person I trusted the most and
Yeah.
go through all that. And it was, it's very, it's a very, it's revealing. It's
and I
very-
think it's a testament to how important it is to build solid relationships
Yes.
before. Don't build them with the intention of I'm going to need this person when I have to plan a funeral, but
Right.
building a solid relationship that really you can count on when you have to.
For sure.